everybody. I am Anna Bryce. I am the VP of Communications at the AMA Phoenix. Welcome. We are really happy to have you join us today, and we're very excited to have speaker Brett Farmiloe with us today and on a very important topic. So we will get started on that in just a moment. I would like to start by thanking our sponsors. We have here a great group of sponsors who make the AMA possible and for all that we're able to do and the content we're able to bring you. I would particularly like to thank Taylor Wellman, who is our host of all these events from Financial Potion. And if you have any video needs, please consider giving Taylor a call. And I would also like to point out Burek Communication Design. I think she's on the line right now, and if not, she will be. She is our graphic design sponsor here at the AMA. And again, if you have graphic design needs, I hope you consider them. We also would like to thank our supporters. These are the companies that support our board members. Our board members put in a lot of time and effort into this organization, and they can only do that with the support of their companies. So we thank them. And I would like to just get right into it and introducing our speaker today, Brett Farmiloe. He is the founder and CEO of Markitors, a Scottsdale-based SEO company for small businesses. Brett's first job out of school was as a corporate auditor, in which he analyzed financial statements for Fortune 500 companies and also medium-sized businesses. Well, that may seem odd, but believe it or not, he's still kind of doing the same thing, just with a little twist. Instead of analyzing financial statements, he's poring over numbers in Google's Search Console and analytics. So without further delay, I would like to welcome Brett to the stage, so to speak. Brett, thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate you taking the time with us.
Yeah, thanks for the intro, and yeah, still geeking out on the numbers hardcore. So it's good to be here. Awesome to be a part of AMA in 2020. I just got introduced to the group earlier this year, and it has been a fun ride. So I'm sharing my screen here. You guys all seeing it okay?
All yes.
Right. Awesome.
And I do want to mention that Brett has been very supportive over the past year. He is also a sponsor, and he has been providing a lot of our blog content every month. So please be sure to check it out. And Brett, again, we thank you for all the support that you have provided this year. Yeah. And we will be providing the recording and presentation of this webinar. So while yes, be taking notes, you will also get the recording.
Right on. Well, thanks for sharing that. Just to dive right into it, is first things first, I love to start off every speech with just stating the mission and objective of today, which number one for me, it's always to have some fun. So I'm hoping that we can have some fun over the next hour. But more so than that, in terms of the practicalities with SEO, there's two reasons why people usually engage in an SEO campaign. One is either to get more sales and leads or some more traffic to the site. The second reason is to decrease their paid advertising spend. And so if you're out there running some Google AdWords campaigns or Facebook ads, those are usually the two primary factors. And so hopefully I'm able to share some different strategies and tactics on ways that you can increase your visibility online. And so that's what we're up to today in terms of agenda. I figured that it would be good to start out by talking about what is SEO. There's a lot of confusion around what is search engine optimization. So I want to break down SEO into three different categories so that we're all able to think clearly about it. Second thing is how to do an SEO audit for content strategies. So, and I just mentioned that I was a former financial auditor, and now I do a lot of marketing audits. So that is something that is carried over to this marketing world. So I wanted to share our approach to that. And then since this is AMA, we might as well do some AMA and ask me anything at the very end of this. So I'm targeting probably about 30 minutes to jam through these slides, and then really want to spend some time on the Q&A, because that's where the magic happens. And If you guys don't have questions, I have some questions for myself. So again, we're going to have some fun and dive into it. So starting things off, just to give you a little background about us and Markitors, if you Google the term digital marketing company, you will most likely find Markitors on the first page of search results nationwide. So I saw that we had one visitor in Toronto. I don't know if we'll be on the first page in Toronto, but that's how we got our start about 4 or 5 years ago as a company. So we've grown our business organically through SEO, and that's why we're a strong believer in it. And so, yeah, just wanted to kind of share our philosophies in the 5+ years of operating as an SEO company. So diving into this, what is SEO? There's a distinct marketing mix that we've kind of developed to break it down into 3 categories, and I'm going to dive into each one of those categories. The first one is content. So obviously, we're talking about how SEO and content marketing kind of blend together. I'm going to talk about what is content. Second aspect of SEO is digital PR. And so we're going to spend some time there. And the third aspect is technical SEO. So when you combine content, digital PR, and technical SEO, you pretty much have a cohesive SEO campaign. So diving into content and this question of what is content, content basically targets keywords to drive inbound traffic to your business. So I'll slow it down a little bit because there's many different types of content that you can create as a business, and those range from landing pages to blog posts to ultimate guides to answering customer FAQs with a how-to article. There's many different methods and channels and of pieces of content that you could create, but ultimately the objective is to pick a keyword that ideally has some search volume and some relevancy to your business, and then to create some content that targets that keyword so that you are able to now get visibility when someone Googles that particular keyword and lands on that piece of content that you've created. So that is content as a high overarching nutshell there. I want to talk about a quick case study because this kind of solidifies the different things that you could do with the pieces of content. Our very first client back in 2012 was an executive search firm. They didn't have a name, they didn't have a website. And over the course of 8 years, we've taken them from 0 visits a month to more than 75,000 visits per month, mainly through content creation. And just wanted to kind of break down that strategy because we've created over 1,500 pages of content over the last 8 years, and we now rank for over 12,000 organic keywords, and it has replaced about $35,000 a month in Google ad spend. And more importantly, the KPI that everyone cares about is that they get about 20 excellent leads per month through this content creation. And so if you break down the strategy and go back to that last slide about how do you go from 0 visits a month to generating 100 visits a month or 1,000 visits a month? Basically, what you do is you'll target some keywords and you'll create a piece of content that then will attract that traffic. So I talked about landing pages. So for this particular executive search firm, one of the strategies that they deployed from a content perspective was picking every locality that they're able to service in the US and developing a landing page for it. And so if someone is looking for an executive search firm in Columbus, Ohio, or Chicago, or Phoenix, you can develop a piece of content that will cater towards someone who's looking for an executive search firm in Chicago. And so that's what one critical piece of the content strategy that we executed for them was. I think we created about 50 or 60 different localized landing pages that really spoke and shared content around what someone would want to know if they were searching for an executive search firm in Chicago. And so that's kind of the name of the game of backing it up a little bit from a content perspective, is thinking about what is a searcher really trying to discover in this search, and then thinking about, okay, if I'm searching for an executive search firm in Chicago, what am I really trying to discover? Am I trying to discover one executive search firm? Am I trying to discover 10 executive search firms? And so oftentimes you can get that clarity about what a searcher is trying to discover just by Googling it and seeing what populates the top 10 search results, and then basically auditing that search result page and figuring out what content can you create and how do you actually make it better so that you could crack into that top 10. So that's one case study that I wanted to share with you is, cohesively breaking down what their strategy is. You have those landing pages, but then another successful thing that we did was create blog posts. And basically, as an executive search firm, a lot of people are curious about the interview questions that they will ask candidates, and also the type of roles that they could potentially service. And so we created quite a few blog posts that were around the particular roles that the staffing firm was able to fill, and then paired that with the term interview questions, because there's actually quite significant search volume around each one. And so we created blog posts like CEO interview questions or business development interview questions and things of that nature. And that was another really successful thing to drive some traffic. So, you can put on your own content marketer hat, and it really starts with that audit and developing different keywords and doing some research and thinking about what makes the most sense to your business. This next slide here is taken directly from our sales pitches, but I figured that it was a good checklist to share, because when you are looking to answer this question of what is content as it pertains to SEO, it can be broken down into many different things. For someone who's looking to do an SEO campaign on their own, the main deliverables that you're probably going to occupy in this one particular area of SEO is first and foremost a quarterly content strategy. So we'll go over that later in this presentation, but a content strategy is guided by keyword search volumes, the difficulty score of actually ranking for that keyword, as well as replacement advertising costs. And so if you were able to do some research and say, hey, it'll actually cost me $5 a click to advertise for this keyword through Google Ads, then you have to make the determination on whether or not you want to pay for that traffic via a paid advertising campaign or target it through a search engine optimization campaign. And so you have that quarterly strategy, again, that's guided by those search volumes, those difficulty scores, those replacement advertising costs, and then you begin executing it. And so for most businesses, we usually recommend a weekly piece of content that goes onto their site. So by weekly piece of content, again, we're talking about a new blog post that goes up on the site every week, or a new landing page that goes up every week. And the reason for that frequency is that for you to be effective from an SEO standpoint, you want Google to look at you as a trusted source for new information and a frequent publisher of new ideas and new content that is relevant to the space that you operate in. And so frequency is one thing that when you're setting out to create an SEO campaign for yourself, you want to determine how, realistically and logistically, how many pieces of content you can actually create for your business each month. So at a minimum, monthly is a great goal and objective to target. And then it also depends on your business, but weekly is something that every business should probably try to strive for if you're serious about it. And then the last deliverable here, and the last thing that really can make an impact from a content perspective, is page title tags and meta descriptions. And so page title tags, if you Google any keyword, you'll see those search results, and the title is essentially of the search result is your page title tag. And that's something that kind of uses the headline that a searcher will determine whether or not to click on the result. The meta description is that short little description underneath that headline. And so if you were able to go in for all of your primary pages on your website, and even some of your secondary pages, and optimize those page title tags to have an appropriate headline that also matches with the exact keyword that you're looking to rank for, that's a really, really basic but effective move for an SEO campaign. So any business owner can take inventory. A really good check is if you go to your to the homepage of your website, and if it says the word home in your page title tag, you know that there's an opportunity there to better describe your business and your website. And so I mentioned for marketers, the target keyword for us on our homepage is digital marketing company. And so if I went to marketers.com right now, and if the page title tag said home marketers, well, then that's an opportunity to put, instead of home, you could put digital marketing company. And so that way, when someone searches digital marketing company, Google knows that this page is about that particular keyword, and you're that much more likely to appear for that particular keyword. So if there's one thing for a business owner who's looking to do SEO themselves, that would be one of the takeaways from today, is just to go to the site and basically hover over the little browser tab up top and see what your homepage title tag actually says about your business, and whether or not you should edit or readjust the description that title tag says about your site. So that, in a nutshell, is content. And that's kind of the first domino that starts to fall with an SEO campaign. That's the thing that really drives everything. Most people will stop there and say, hey, we did what you said, Brett. We identified some keywords that were relevant to the business. We created a blog post, we published it, and that's where a lot of people's efforts stop. The second part of SEO that I want to talk about is digital PR. So digital PR is basically securing external backlinks from websites so that you can increase your authority for your domain. So imagine this with digital PR or with SEO in general. You're competing against other websites for visibility for those keywords. And how does Google or any search engine place those rankings? And so what constitutes a number 2 ranking versus a number 20 ranking? And the thing that Google was founded on is basically as a hypertextual search engine. And if you go all the way back to 1996, when Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the Google founders, were at Stanford, they authored a paper that basically said, hey, the more links that point to a page, the higher that we're going to rank that page in our search results. And obviously, over the last 24 years, there's been quite a few algorithmic changes. Now there's over 200 ranking factors beyond just links. But at the core of it, links matter and the authority matters, because if you are Google and you're looking to determine who ranks where, the more authoritative your site is, the more trusted you are. And Google is all about trust and protecting and giving users the best experience. And so the thing that's the hardest to do, that's unnecessary to do, is to increase the authority of your website so that you can outrank competitors. And so that's what digital PR really is the objective of it is to increase the number of backlinks that are pointing to your site, but not only just backlinks, but also just mentions of your brand in articles and on directories and things like that. So I want to give you one example of how content and digital PR kind of get married into this, and how you could potentially use social media as well as email marketing to help propel your SEO efforts. We had one education website that we worked with where we essentially identified a competitor who had a very successful guide, but that guide was created more than 5 years ago. And so a lot of the information was outdated, and they ranked that one guide, I think, was generating, over 1,000 visits a month for this competitor website. They ranked for all these different keywords. And so we decided to basically create a better version of that guide. And so what we did was, we basically updated the information to say, hey, instead of 5 years ago guide, this is the present day guide around this topic. And we then audited and found out all of the different websites that linked to the old guide. And once we published our new guide, we used social media and email to reach out to all of those different sites and say, hey, we've produced this updated guide. We think it would be a great replacement for the guide that you're currently linking to. Would you consider updating your page to link to our guide instead of the outdated guide? And so the value proposition in that is that obviously now a website links to better content, which creates a better user experience for a reader. And so we were really successful in that. And that's a really successful approach. We ended up securing about 25 plus backlinks from different high authority websites, including even Harvard University. And so that's a methodology that really anyone can borrow. It's called a skyscraper content strategy, where you identify an outdated piece of content, you create a better one, and then you outreach to all of the people who are linking to the old piece of content to convince them to link to the new piece of content. And so the end result of this is now you can grow your authority of your website through the backlinks and through the different mentions that you're getting from external websites. And so going into this last slide about digital PR, the deliverables here, really the goal that you should set for yourself on a monthly basis if you're doing an SEO campaign is an X amount of backlinks per month from external sites. And you can achieve this through many different ways. You can achieve it through the skyscraper technique that I talked about. You could reach out to different associations or local businesses that you have partnerships with and see if there's any kind of partnership that you can establish on either swapping links or an opportunity to provide a guest post perhaps on a blog. And you really just have to get creative in terms of an audit of how your competitors have built up their link profiles. But the bottom line is you want to be able to go out and achieve X amount of links per month. The goal that we usually set for ourselves when we take on new clients is 2 backlinks per month. And that's a pretty reasonable, healthy way to grow the authority of your site over time. But I share this because a lot of people just think content, and content is king, but there's got to be some sort of promotional method to help boost up the authority of that content. And that's achieved through digital PR. Last piece that I'm going to talk about in regards to what is SEO is technical SEO. And technical SEO sounds a little scary, but basically it is allowing search engines to discover and index the content on your site. And if you think about how search engines work, they basically have crawlers that will crawl websites, discover all the content, and then report back for indexing. And indexing basically is inclusion on a search engine result page. And so there's a lot of, that sounds really simple, but there's a lot of things that get in the way of crawling. And a lot of stuff is stuff like site speed. You might have a very slow website that the crawler is not able to get through the whole website. Or you will have different on-page items such as header tags that are descriptors for what the content's about. And so basically your goal with technical SEO is to make sure that search engines and humans can understand the content on your site. So I'll break that down a little bit more on this next slide here. This is a case study for a hotel website. And this was one of our clients. I know that there was a couple people earlier in this presentation that talked about what do I need to do to launch a new website? And that's pretty much what I'm going to talk about here, in that we had onboarded this client. We had been with them for about a year, and we had 10x growth in their organic search visits and bookings. And then they decided to launch a new site, and they hired a developer to do that. And once the developer launched the new site, about 2 weeks later, we noticed that search engine traffic dropped from where it was to 0. And so we looked into that and said, well, that developer disallowed indexing in the robots.txt file. And the robots.txt is essentially a directive to crawlers to say what they are allowed to crawl and what they're not. And with WordPress, there's a little simple checkbox that says disallow search engines from indexing my site. And when the developer launched the site, he had mistakenly left that little checkbox there. So that's an example of how technical SEO can impact and derail all content efforts on an extreme example, but it's also justification as to why technical SEO should be part of the conversation when considering how to best promote your content. There's a really simple technical SEO checklist. Like, you always would want to create a robots.txt file, which is automatically created on WordPress sites and Squarespace sites and things like that. But you want to just give it a quick check. You could always just go to your website /robots.txt and just see what's in there. And if there's something that says disallow and then a /, that means that all content on your website is essentially discouraged from indexing by crawlers. So if there's another action item, just going to your site, again, robots.txt, and making sure that your site can be discovered and indexed by search engines. Another really simple thing is submitting a sitemap. So a sitemap is essentially like providing a map to someone who's about to embark on a road trip. you are essentially doing that to a search engine crawler to say, hey, here's how to discover the most important content on my site. So a sitemap is something that you can easily do through WordPress. There's plugins like Yoast that automatically will create a sitemap. And once you have that sitemap created, you could put that through Google Search Console, which Google Search Console is essentially the main method of communication that website owners have with Google. And once you submit that sitemap, now Google knows how to discover the content that exists on your site. So there's many different elements of technical SEO. A lot of it is really around like site speed and just ease of use, both from a search engine and a human perspective. A couple things that easy things to also check a website for that are usually common shortfalls is 404 errors. So 404 errors are basically broken pages on your website. And to fix those, you can either redirect the URL of the broken page, or you could just go in and fix the page and make sure that content exists on that page. But that's usually a common culprit. Large images are something that I usually see with do-it-yourself websites on WordPress and Squarespace and Wix and things of that nature. So you want to make sure that you're serving up some good web-based and optimized images so that, again, it increases the site speed and the load time so that people can easily access your site. But bottom line is, if you're going to embark on an SEO campaign, you want to consider technical SEO. And the way that you could probably best consider technical SEO is by using a free tool that's out there to do an audit. There's a lot of different free technical SEO audit tools. So if you just go to Google, type in free technical SEO audit, then there should be quite a few different tools that you could rely on. Some of my favorites are Screaming Frog. Screaming Frog is like a more advanced SEO audit tool. Ahrefs is another one that's a paid one that we use all the time. We're doing weekly technical SEO checks on all the sites that we work with. But Google Search Console is also a very good one because they'll tell you which elements of your site might be lagging and which ones need to be addressed. So those are three tools that you can jump into from a tech SEO standpoint. But I wanted to share all that stuff because I think that there's a lot of confusion around what is SEO. And hopefully after this this convo, you now know that, hey, SEO is broken down into those three areas with content, with digital PR, and with technical SEO. And when you combine all of them, that's how you can build a really successful SEO campaign to develop increased visibility, increased traffic, and increased leads and sales. So all that to now lead up to this next section of the site. So take a breath. Hopefully that was not too much. I see some comments coming through here, but I wanted to just share a quick methodology for how SEO and content marketing can work together by doing an audit. And so when you're thinking about developing a content strategy and thinking about where to actually even start from an SEO campaign, it usually just starts with a simple audit. And that audit is broken down into 3 steps. And so I think that this is something that all of us can take home and practice and apply to our own sites. But it's a really simple methodology. It's number 1, finding out what you rank for. Number 2, finding out what your competitors rank for and how far they are ahead of your site. And then number 3 is selecting the keywords that you can rank for, and then just develop some content that satisfies the search intent for each keyword. So find out what you rank for, find out what your competitors rank for, and then select the keywords that you think are going to give you the best shot at developing some increased traffic. So I'm going to walk through each one of those pretty quickly here. So how do you identify keywords? How do you find out what you actually rank for? The best way to do that is to rely on the data that comes from Google Search Console. And so if you don't have a Google Search Console account, it's free. I would sign up. I would verify a website, again, because it is the way that Google is able to communicate with website owners. So Google Search Console also has an element in there called performance, and you're able to essentially monitor and measure which keywords you do have visibility for and you do rank for, even if you don't get any traffic for it. So they basically show which keywords rank in the top 100 positions. And that's a really good opportunity for you to now find out what you do rank for with the most opportunity. So that's a good free tool. There's also, if you don't rank for anything, and if you just have a brand new website, Google Keyword Planner tool is another free tool that's offered by Google that allows you to type in keywords and figure out what the search volume is for those keywords. And you're able to do that for local businesses. You're able to add a filter that shows how often that keyword is searched in your locality. And so it's another strong way for brand new websites to develop a content strategy if there's a non-existent history of ranking. And then if you're looking for a paid tool, the tool that we rely on is called Ahrefs, ahrefs.com. That's a paid tool, but that's a fantastic way to figure out where the opportunities are for keywords that you currently rank for. And then just bringing this back to content, once you find out what you rank for, you essentially have three different options to, from a content perspective. You can either develop new content that targets that keyword, you can update or refresh the content that does rank for that keyword, or you could just keep the same content and better promote it. And all three of those methods are good ways to help increase your ranking to again, increase your traffic. What I'd like to do here is just walk you through a quick audit. So this is Brett's imaginary credit repair company. And what I've done here is I've selected 3 keywords that I rank in the top 100 for, but don't necessarily get traffic for. And so you can see up here, I've selected 3 keywords: credit repair software, credit repair services, and how to improve my credit score. I'm currently ranked number 71 for credit repair software, number 58 for credit repair services, and number 96 for how to improve my credit score. And so each one of these opportunities is great from an SEO perspective, because it's basically saying, hey, Google looks at your site as a potential source to rank for this information. And so as a credit repair company, I basically have an opportunity to either create new content, to update some existing content, or better promote my content to increase the ranking for each one of these keywords. And this is significant because what people will often do when creating a content strategy is they will just select the keywords with the highest search volume without taking into account what their website is actually known for. So that's it's a lot easier to go from the 71st search result to the top 10 versus not in the top 100 to the first page. You have to have some good momentum. Otherwise, SEO is just going to take a really long time. And so that's why it's important to start with a quick audit to figure out what you actually do rank for. So now that we've got these 3 keywords, the next step is to figure out the actual keyword search volume behind each one, as well as the difficulty score. And so the search volume of credit repair software is that you're now searched, that keyword is searched 2,800 times per month on a scale of 1 to 100, with 1 being easy, 100 being hard. The difficulty score on that is a 39. So that's a very hard keyword to rank for. The keyword cost per click, again, from an alternative perspective, you would expect to pay $13 if you were to advertise for that keyword on Google. And that's significant because it helps identify the alternatives for whether or not an SEO campaign is the right method, or if a Google ad campaign might be a right method. It also is a good indicator on how well that keyword will actually convert if you were to rank on the first page. And so this whole exercise in this slide that we're looking at is we're trying to figure out what's the business impact of an SEO campaign. Like if we're really successful and we wave the magic wand and we say, okay, now our site ranks, number 5 for this particular keyword, what can we expect from an ROI perspective? Which is really significant when you're thinking about hiring another agency or hiring someone internally to do this. You're trying to figure out, how is this going to impact the revenue of my company? And so if we do the math here, if credit repair software is searched 2,800 times per month, and the estimated click rate of being on the first page is 15%, which is generally a decent measure for forecasting. And if the estimated conversion rate is 2%, meaning that 2 out of every 100 visits will actually convert over to a paying customer, well, then we can expect to get 8 new clients every month if we rank on the first page for credit repair software. So mathematically, backing up what an SEO campaign can do is a really positive step to figure out if SEO is even worth it, and if and what you have to do to actually get there. So I like to share this slide as a good start for a content strategy, because you could put any keyword through this methodology and essentially figure out how valuable it is for your business. So that's step one, is figuring out what you actually rank for, and figuring out what the business impact would be. The second part of this is doing a competitor audit. So basically figuring out how far behind or ahead are you in comparison to competitors. Because remember, going back to digital PR, you have to have enough authority to actually rank for these keywords. And so if you're targeting credit repair services, you have to be a pretty authoritative website. And if you're going up against other authoritative sites, you have to determine what's the gap between that authority. So Brett's imaginary credit repair company, let's say my domain rating is a 14, and domain rating is essentially how authoritative your website is on a scale from 1 to 100. And so if I'm at a 14, that's a great metric to take a look at Upturn Credit, which is a imaginary competitor of mine, and they're at a 33. And so domain rating is essentially devised by taking a look at the number of websites that are linking to you and the number of times that they're linking to you. So referring domains is number of websites that link to me, and backlinks is how many times those referring domains actually link to me. So you can see here now, as we get into the numbers, and sorry for the spreadsheet stuff here, but the referring domains, Upturn Credit has 209 referring domains, and my imaginary credit repair company has 63. And so as a goal, in order for me to increase my authority and to compete against my competitor, I need to increase my referring domains and bridge that gap a little bit so that I'm an authority voice in the credit repair game. So that's it's great to know that, because now if I know I'm going to go head to head against a competitor that's far more authoritative than me, then that might disqualify a keyword from actually being targeted in a content strategy. And I'll get to that in the Q&A, because one of my favorite questions is, how does a small business compete with a bigger company? And that's basically you have to get creative from a keyword selection. Is you, instead of going after credit repair services, maybe you go after Phoenix credit repair services, or like a locality, or you go after a longer tail keyword like credit repair services for college students or whoever. So doing a competitor audit is the second step in that audit checklist. And from that competitor audit, you can have some really good takeaways. For example, in my imaginary instance here, getting to page 1 for those 3 target keywords should produce about 60 new leads per month for me. So that's a pretty significant number, but I'm going to need a lot more digital PR to build up my domain authority to actually rank for that. And then in the meantime, in regards to a thought going forward for my content strategy, there's a lot of local content opportunities around target keywords, and also a lot of opportunities around credit education. People having good questions around, how do I improve my credit score, which is searched 1,500 times per month. So all that to say, that's kind of the 3-step process here, is finding out what you rank for, finding out what competitors rank for, and then selecting the keywords that you actually want to create some new content for. I'm about out of breath, so hopefully you guys were able to stick with me through all of that. I do have some next steps before Q&A. The next steps on where to go from here is, first, identify your keywords. So identify your keywords using Google and Ahrefs, And then second step is to audit those competitors using Ahrefs. There's not a really good way to audit competitors using Google. So if you don't want to do, well, if you want to do it, Ahrefs has a 7-day, $7 trial before it gets to the next level. So if you're doing this on a one-time basis, that's how I'd recommend it. Third step is predicting the ROI of your campaign. Once you've determined that SEO is a good fit, develop your content strategy, build it out in Asana or your favorite project management tool, however you keep track of your days and your times and your campaigns. I can't stress that enough, because so many people jump into an SEO campaign with the best of intentions, and then life happens and business happens and you lose sight of a lot of that content creation. So build it out in Asana so you can keep track of it, or a project management tool. And the last step is the hardest step, which is creating the content and then promoting it. And the end result is that you should see a general inflow of traffic, of leads, and you're able to sustainably grow your business. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I think that this is a really good, strong slide to end it. There are 3 really helpful tools that I'll share very quickly. One, at the very start of this, there was mention about how AMA receives great content from marketers. And basically what we're doing is that very first site, Turkle.io, is a platform that connects brands with expert voices. And essentially anyone's able to go in and answer questions and get published on a website like AMA to help build their online credibility. And so going back to the digital PR slides that I had mentioned, building online credibility is like one of the hardest things to do. And so if you're looking for a free, easy way to do that, and to be featured on a site like AMA, go to Turkle.io, answer some questions, and get published. Markitors.com has a free SEO audit tool. So if you're looking to get started on the technical aspects of that, you could certainly dive in there. And then we also have a blog post with lots of video tutorials on how to create a content marketing strategy. So if you Google how to create a content marketing strategy with the word marketers in it, then you should have some good leave behind resources to get that next start. So with that said, I'm out of breath. Thank you very much. And let's pop into a Q&A here.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Brett. That was amazing. So much information. I have a few questions already here. And as everyone is starting to wrap their mind around all the great content you shared, if questions pop up, please do not hesitate. Put them in the chat box. We have time to answer your questions. So the first question that I'm going to ask you is, you kind of already alluded to it. How can a small business compete with a large company in terms of SEO?
Yeah, it's getting very creative. And what I'll say is long tail keywords are the answer. Long tail keywords are defined as keywords that are between like 3 to 5 to even 6 words in length. It's what's called a query. And the reason why long tail keywords are the way to go for a small business is that oftentimes they're not big enough of an opportunity for a big business to create content around. So again, if we go back to like that credit repair services example, if I take it one step further to get very defined of what I'm going after, whether that's a locality like Phoenix or whether that's a demographic like college students, that's something that a larger credit repair company might not have the time or resources to actually do, that a small business can then carve out that space and develop some momentum. And so if you're looking to develop some sort of competitive advantage as a small business with SEO, target long tail keywords. And if you're looking for what a long tail keyword may be, because oftentimes these SEO tools might not surface some of those long tail keywords, just listen to your customers. Like listen to the questions that customers repeatedly ask you, and create a blog post that answers that question in depth as a way to not only save you some time of answering that question over and over, you could just send out that link, but also to attract other customers who may have those questions as well.
Excellent. And, in your executive firm case study, what was different on each of those local landing pages they created?
Yeah, that's a great question. So sorry, I'm having a little Zoom difficulties here trying to get my video straight. Anyways, so I'll give more secrets out for that strategy. Basically, so if you Google any kind of service and a locality, you'll notice that Yelp is usually there. Yelp is usually there with like the top 10 XYZ companies in city name. And so if you're looking to, because basically if you're looking for an executive search firm or credit repair company or any type of company, you mainly want diversity. You don't want just like one selection for the top company. You're usually wanting to consider multiple companies. And so the best content to create for a localized SEO strategy is one with diversity. And so the difference in content for each one of those local pages is essentially the inclusion of local companies on those pages. So they may be viewed as competitors, but what I always say from that strategy perspective is once you get the traffic to your website, you have a lot of different options on what to do. So that's the difference in that content.
Wonderful. And then should title tags contain keywords?
Most definitely. So yeah, hopefully I was able to stress that. Going back to the role that page title tags play in an SEO campaign, you basically want that to be the title of the paper. Like if you're going back to school and you're going to hand in an assignment to the professor, you want your page title tag to be the headline that professor sees to determine what's that paper about. So that's definitely where the title tags come in. And that's like, if I were to recommend any kind of, like if you had 1 hour to make the biggest difference from an SEO standpoint, go in, audit your page title tags, include the keywords, include like one target keyword in a page title tag. Don't try to stuff it all in there. And then let the pages do their magic from there.
Wonderful. And, you know, in this day and age, we're very impatient. We want things to happen right away. But on average, you know, how long should you expect to wait until you start seeing results using SEO?
Yeah, so Google has a great video out there that says when you are hiring an SEO expert, you should expect to see results within 4 to 12 months within hiring an SEO expert. So that's the PC answer, and then there's the alternative answer, which really goes back to it depends. It depends on how authoritative your website is and how much momentum that your site has in terms of relevancy around your focus area. So we've seen in a rare case, we saw one company go from, I think, number 16 to number 1 for their target keyword within a month. But I would say that a really successful SEO campaign would be like 3 months, 3 to 6 months. But the PC answer is 4 to 12.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's always better to plan for long term. And then, you know, if you think it's going to take a year and only take 6 months, then that feels like an extra win, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Wonderful. Those are all the questions that I had. At this time, feel free to unmute yourself if you just want to ask the question, or still feel free to put any question you might have in the chat box. So if you want to unmute yourself, do that now.
I got one more question that I'll ask myself that I think would be beneficial to some of the people who are listening in here that I didn't cover. What about local SEO? Like that's one thing that we didn't talk about at all, that I know that there might be some restaurant owners on the call or someone with a physical space that's looking to drive more foot traffic. Local SEO is an entirely different beast, and that one's a little more simplistic in nature. So the start for local SEO is to create a Google My Business profile. And so Google My Business profiles are free. Most people who have a restaurant or something like that already have them, but Google is notorious for kind of keeping closed information on how to improve your ranking on all things except for local SEO. They actually have a great page out there that tells business owners exactly how to increase their local visibility. And so it's broken down into 3 different things. It's broken down into relevance, distance, and prominence. And so the thing that business owners can greatly control from a local perspective is making their profile more relevant for the keywords that they want to appear for. And the way that you increase the relevancy of your Google My Business profile is by completely filling out your profile. So filling out the about section, filling out the year that it was founded, putting in photos, putting in different services that your company or business offers. So that is like definitely for any business owner who's looking to improve their local presence, making sure that your profile is relevant for all the information is the first step. Distance is pretty self-explanatory. You really can't help that other than making sure that your profile is verified and that your address is accurate. And then prominence is pretty much everything that we just covered in this presentation, of making sure that you have digital PR to increase the authority of your site, to make sure that you have content, and make sure that your brand's mentioned, because it's really looking to capture how well your business is known offline so that you can have online results.
And when you started this example, you mentioned restaurants. Would this also be beneficial for a service-based business?
Yeah, anyone that relies on local foot traffic. So anyone who really wants local visibility can create that Google My Business profile and get an added dose of visibility.
Excellent. Any other questions? Feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask Brett at this time.
Hey, Brett, you had mentioned about old content and revising and updating it. And I think you said something about contacting the people who viewed the content or something. I might have that a little wrong, but I wasn't getting that part of it. I think it makes great sense to not recreate the wheel and revise and update content, so you're having new content on your website. It's just that part where you said something about contacting people.
Yep. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to clarify. So there's two different routes that you could do with refreshing content. The example that I was mentioning is refreshing or creating a piece of content that would replace a competitor piece of content. So you're basically figuring out, okay, there's this old crusty piece of content that ranks really well on Google, but isn't exactly relevant today, and I think I could do better. And so you create a new, fresher, better piece of content that now seeks to replace that competitor content. And now your next step is to reach out to all of the websites that link to the old piece to convince them to link to now your piece. So
Okay.
That was what I was referring to there.
Right. Okay.
Yes, that makes sense. And I love your tips too on just, connecting with people to partner to try to, increase your backlinks, because backlinks, how do you just magically appear on other people's sites? And so do you have any other tips that you could share around that?
Yeah. So I think that it's the hardest thing to do. It is the hardest thing to do, which is, I mentioned the shameless plug in there about Turkle and Turkle.io to go answer questions and get published. We created that as a way to help business owners, build up that credibility, and really that just taps into the tip that I would have here, which is sharing your expertise. Because the more that you share your expertise, just on a simple Zoom call like this, now I've got that, personally, I've got the opportunity to say, okay, now Brett is mentioned on this website, Markitors is mentioned on this website, can we work together through sharing expertise to link back to the site so people can learn more? So the more that you're sharing your expertise on places like LinkedIn, on your own blog, medium.com, Quora, things like that, the more opportunities that will come your way in terms of like, hey, will you share more of what you've already shared?
Excellent. Thank you so much. Anyone else have any other questions at this time? Either put them in the chat box or feel free to unmute yourself and ask Brett the question.
I got one more question for myself,
Okay.
unless people have it, which is, where can I go to learn more about SEO? So if you guys want to continue your own research in this, and this hopefully ignited some curiosity, there's two places that I would or actually three. One is Google. Google's got a great SEO starter guide. So going in and always learning from the source is great. So there's some good best practices there. Just literally search Google best practices and you'll find that. Another one is the Ahrefs blog. So I mentioned a couple times that Ahrefs is our favorite SEO tool, and Ahrefs has some amazing studies and research that they've done, as well as some very descriptive do-it-yourself tutorials. So think Ahrefs is a good place to start. And then ultimately, it's doing it yourself. Like, the best way to learn about SEO is through trial and error. That's how I've learned about it over the last 15 years. And so the more that you can apply yourself through the stuff that we talked about today, the better you'll be in the long term.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Great. Thank you so much, Brett. And we will be getting the presentation and the recording out to everybody, so that you will definitely get. Just want to mention before we close up here today, our upcoming events, we have 2 more left for the remainder of the year. So November 12th, Pamela Slim will be speaking on ecosystem design, finding your ideal peers, partners, and customers. And then also joining us on December 10th. And then we will be done for the remainder of the year. So please keep an eye out on our website, amaphoenix.org, for these events, and make sure you register. So Brett, I do want to thank you. That was a great presentation. I know I learned a lot. I took a full page of notes, and and again, it just reconfirmed to me of the importance of the 3 components that you talked about: content, for your expertise, and you answer your prospects' questions. That helps with search. Digital PR, building your online credibility and authority. And technical SEO, which might be the hardest part for people like me, but all 3 components are really important. I like what you said about long-term keywords. They may be the answer for small businesses, and it's a reason why we need to be producing good content. Thank you for confirming that getting backlinks is hard, because sometimes it feels desperate, but thank you, because yes, it is hard. And it just goes to show that you need to be constantly doing these things. It's not a one and done. So thank you very much, Brett. We appreciate you taking the time. I look forward to giving this presentation to everybody so they can review it again. And I know that's what I'm going to do as well. So thank you, Brett.
Yeah,
and then,
thank you guys.
And I do want to, again, real quickly, thank our sponsors. Taylor, thank you again for hosting for us. And everyone, if you have a video need, please do consider Taylor. And also on the line is one of our sponsors, Burek Communication Design. So if you have any graphic design needs, please consider Burek. And once again, thank you to our supporters. These are the companies who support our board members, and without them, we couldn't do it. So we really do appreciate it. And again, keep an eye out on amaphoenix.org for our upcoming events. Brett, thank you again. A terrific presentation. I know I have a lot to absorb, and everyone, thank you for joining us. And we hope to see you again on November 12th and December 10th. Have a great rest of the day, everyone. And thank you for joining us.